Hello.
Can you unmute me? Hello? Oh, testing. 1, 2, testing.
Sounds good. That one sounds good.
Yeah, they're not good batteries. They're okay. But... Testing, testing. I think we need to turn this one up a little bit.
This morning, the other one, the one you were just at, was there. It would sounded like it was going into the loudspeakers and getting picked up by the other mics.
That's weird. Because in person, this one sounds a lot louder than the other one.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot of echoing from it.
Okay, let me grab the iPad. Let's see if I can adjust it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be long enough, but. The only other question I had about that was, do we want it pushed to one side or the other? And if so, what side? Well, I'm supposed to follow behind him with the iPad because his whole headphone idea wasn't going to work. Testing, testing, testing.
Did he say what time he's gonna?
Yeah, I just want to try this one too. I don't know why this one's so quiet. It's humming.
It sounds fine over Zoom.
Okay. Testing. 1, 2.
It's feedback. Mild.
Yeah.
I've been trying to adjust the angle.
That's better over Zoom, Ed?
Yeah, that one sounds good over Zoom.
Yeah. Yep, testing, testing. A little bit better. All right, I'm going to do the other two. Okay, testing, testing,
It sounds good.
testing, testing. We also have some of those videos that the rabbi wants to play. I was going to test one of those too, make sure that goes through okay. Ed, is that all right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
You want to play video 1? How was that?
I wanted to get a little further into it, see if it was just quiet at the beginning or if it needs the
Okay.
volume turned up a little.
Go ahead, keep going, please.
Oh, yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay. The video is coming through good on it. You can
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
I think we're all set then.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
sir.
Okay, I'll log back in before the service starts.
All right, we'll be on here. Thanks, Ed.
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye.
You too. You can mute it again, Isaac. Thank you.
Gary, I loved your bar mitzvah picture. You're on mute.
I haven't changed a bit.
Yeah.
It shows that there were Jews on the south side at one time.
Is the congregation where you had your bar mitzvah where Rabbi Funya has his now?
No, no.
Actually, that one, that's on the southwest side. That's Marquette Park where Rabbi Funya is. That's the one where Barb was a member of the USY when she was a teenager.
And Mary and Reuben Harris belong there also.
Ah,
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, there was a time going back to the 50s and 60s where there were probably, I'm going to guess, a dozen or 15 synagogues on the southeast side.
Wow. Gee.
So I'm going to
And-
take you guys, I'm going to take you guys back in time a little bit in a second. Just take a look at the chat. I'm pasting something in. And I have more of these, but this is one. You can try that out at your leisure. I could do a share screen, but you can do these on your own. Just follow the link and enjoy.
This was last year, I assume.
This is 2014.
Oh, okay.
I have a bunch of them. If you search West Suburban oh, that one you have to search swirling Torahs. But I think if you search West Suburban Temple, you find some of my old temple videos too. They were my videos. Yeah, that was fun.
Very cute.
Yeah.
I missed that.
What's that?
I
Yeah.
miss it.
Well, you know, historically, Reuben Harris and I used to, oh, I go back and Normal remember this when we didn't really dance so much with the Torah so much. And Rabbi Tabachnik, one day, he and Harold Cantor-Brindell were on the Bima, and Tabachnik kind of took one Torah and Cantor-Brindell was standing with the other, and he started going around him like in a little dance, and Tabachnik, you know, and they just, and it kind of, meanwhile, Reuben Harris and I used to do a Kazatsky every year,
Right,
and
right.
I decided that Reuben's pacemaker had to be set to Hava Nagila. That's the only way. Oh,
I have missed being in a sukkah this year.
yeah, and I missed smelling an etrog. I came to the temple and Eddie sent the maintenance guy. He found me Jim found me a lulav, but he couldn't find an etrog. And I just, to me, the aroma of the etrog is so important. But I didn't make it, so if anybody has one laying around. Is that my old video somebody's got on in the background?
yeah, I've got it.
I've got more of them. Anything.
We lose our esteemed leaders.
And Myra,
Hi there.
Hi.
I was thinking, you know, I said something about fire in your sukkah. I think the paper tablecloth started to singe or something. Just didn't really burn.
You may be right. I didn't remember a fire, but
No, it wasn't really a fire. It was just enough that we decided, wait a minute.
enough
It
to
was a
scare
pretty cold night.
Well, think of it as a miracle. And
That's right. That's right.
hey, there's a puzzle piece in my purse. That can't be good.
That must be the missing link. The
Yeah,
missing piece.
it probably is the missing.
Somebody else is sitting there trying to put a puzzle together.
That's right.
Hi, Myra.
And
Well,
Myra's got the missing piece.
Our puzzle is across the room. I don't think I could do that and this at the same time. Doing one thing at a time is kind of what I'm managing these days. But I was just looking in my purse and
So are Josh and Stephanie sitting there going, we've got this puzzle, we're missing a piece, where could it be?
Yeah.
no, I don't. They actually. I don't think so. I'm pretty. And besides which, it's 12:30 in the morning. I'm pretty sure they're lying down.
Well, I didn't mean like exactly at this minute.
Yeah. No, it'll be Ted or me later. You know, our prior dog, Molly, loved to chew on puzzles.
Hi, everybody. This is Julie at
How
the
it gets
temple. We have
That makes our faces too dark. What's that thing?
hair
Turn that one down.
and we have the Torah scroll. We're going to flip it. And you'll see in
I
a
think the
second, the
inmates
Torah
are
scroll
running to the
is
asylum
all
tonight.
rolled out. Can you see it? Can they hear me?
What do we want?
Yeah, they can hear you. You guys see the Torah scroll is all rolled
Now
out?
you can see the Torah
No,
We
scroll.
can't, we
that's
can't
all
see.
rolled.
All right, let me flip.
We don't
No.
see
Spotlight
anything.
it yet. That's why. We gotta wait till the spotlight starts. We're on there.
There you go.
Oh,
Okay.
okay,
It
better.
starts at Bereshit and it's rolled all the way down.
Oh,
Uh,
so how many feet was that?
About 62 feet so far.
Wow.
There. What's that?
oh,
It's pretty amazing.
Slow it down. I'm trying to read.
No, only Amy Goralnik reads at that speed.
Yeah, right. We ran out of space. Ran out of
I
table.
think they can turn the
Yes,
corner.
we did run out of space. We'd be in the parking lot if we kept going.
Nice.
Make our way back to the rabbi.
Everything's echoing though, very much echo.
It's echo.
Oh, hold on. Let me.
I'll come a little closer, come closer. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry about the music. Let me stop it.
Perfect. Good. So Chag Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach.
Maybe we should turn off the volume on this one.
Yeah,
Turn it on.
you know, if it's sometimes it picks up the sound from your system that you have there.
We're working on so many different systems.
Right.
This-
Yeah.
all right. Anyway, Chag Sameach, everybody. This
Chag
is
Sameach.
going to be a different kind of Simchat Torah experience than we usually have. And really, right, what do we do on Simchat Torah? We dance with the Torahs, and maybe of any holiday we've had this year, this is the one most impacted by the situation because it's very difficult to pass a Torah around in the days of the pandemic, and we're just a very small number of people here. But we're going to do something different, and we are going to be, instead of dancing with the Torah, we're going to be opening up the Torah. We've opened up the Torah as Jim showed you. And I'm going to be taking you on a tour of the Torah. And it's going to be a kind of like tour talking about the scroll, talking about the special features that you see in the scroll that you might not find in a book, as well as going to attempt to tell the story of the entire Torah. I'm going to tell the whole story of the Torah in maybe total about 15, 20 minutes. Don't time me. And I will, the points I think are most resonant, at least to me, at this time, and I think hopefully for all of you as well. And at the same time, this is a whole other dimension, but since this year is so different, let's just make it completely different. I'm going to be taking you on a journey of Israeli music, of modern Israeli music. So this was a kind of really interesting facet of Israel that was brought to my attention maybe 8-9 years ago by Yossi Klein Halevi, who was a commentator on Israel politics mainly, but he fell in love with this new wave of Israeli music, spiritual music, religious music, coming not from They're very religious in Israel, but secular artists, like those who top the charts, those who are pop music stars, who rediscover faith or rediscover their roots in a very deep way, and go on journeys of faith, and then make music, which is still not that different from the kind of music they would make otherwise, in some sense, sophisticated, appealing to young people, but very deep and struggling with faith and religion. And we'll also see a big Sephardic influence in the music. And so many of these artists who are now, pop stars, if all that entails in Israel, had grandfathers who were cantors and chazanim. So they have that tradition deep within them from Baghdad, from Syria, from Egypt, from Morocco. And they bring that sensitivity into their music. So we're going to be looking at this wave of Israeli music, and I've tried to choose tracks as well that correlate with the books of the Torah. So it's going to be a whole integrated journey, all of it together. And I hope you all enjoy it. And I think this is, what is Simchat Torah about? It's about the joy of the Torah. And how is Torah being expressed in Israel? Right now, for many Israelis, it's through this music, this new spiritual music. That's their access to the Torah, to the tradition, to their roots as Jewish people. So we're going to actually begin with a video. And this is a video that came out just before this Rosh Hashanah, so during the COVID pandemic. And a large group of Israeli artists who all got together to sing, to be of blessing to the Jewish people. So this is the lyrics, but we'll put them in the chat for you too, so you can know what they're singing. Open for us the gates of love. Bless us. Give us something of yourself. Open for us the gates of redemption. Speak to us. Give us some hope. Open for us the gates of praise, the gates of song, the gates of purity, the gates of forgiveness. So we're going to put it up for you. And again, here we see that influence of Sephardic music on mainstream Israeli pop. So let's launch that first video number 1, and put in those lyrics into it. So we need to spotlight back our sanctuary, please, Ed.
Okay.
And then we'll begin the tour of the Torah.
הובטח לנו שערי אהבה, ברך אותנו, תן קצת משלך. הובטח לנו שערי גאולה, דבר איתן, תן לנו תקווה. הובטח לנו שערי הודיה, ותן חלקנו דרך לנשמה. הובטח לנו שערי זכרה, חבק אותם, לא צריך סיבה. שמור עליי, התרחקתי קצת יותר מדי, סתם רציתי להגיד לך, בשביל מה יש לי, לא הכל עליי, איך אתה תמיד שם לב אליי, מה נשאר בחיים, קודש לכל, כל דודי דופק, רוצה להתברר, שחרר את זה מהר תתעורר. שמור עליי, התרחקתי קצת יותר מדי, סתם רציתי להגיד לך, בשביל מה יושבים, לא הכל עליי, איך אתה תמיד שם לב אליי, מה עוד נשאר בחיים.
Friends, so we are going to begin. We'll switch the spotlight to the iPod, and we're going to begin our journey through the book of Bereshit. I'm going to get a little bit closer so everybody can see. And it's an experiment. We hope you'll be able to follow along. So we're going to go a little bit quickly, slow down at times. So we begin. This is the beginning of the whole Torah. At the very top here, you see the large bet of Bereshit. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We go down Yom Echad, the first day. The second day, Yom Sheni. Yom Shlishi, the third day. This is the unfolding process of creation. Yom Revi'i, the fourth day. The fifth day, sixth day. And finally, Shabbat. V'yechulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chotz v'am v'yechal Elohim v'yom hashvi'i. God finished creating the world, and on the seventh day, from all of his work, on the seventh day, he took a big breath. So we're going to that's a lot of work. So now we're in our third column of the Torah. There are 250 columns in the Torah. So we're going to go fast, Tanta. We're not just going to go this slowly through 250. But the Torah, every Torah these days, it's written, most of them are written in the same way, so the columns all align, which comes to approximately 250 columns. The book of Genesis is the longest one. So if you look at the very top of this one, God is speaking and saying, Vayomer Adonai Elohim lo tov ehiyot hadam levado. It is not good for man to be alone, right? One of those most important declarations of the Torah. Now we're going to go down. The whole story of the eating of the fruit, Nachash is snake, right? The snake manages to convince Eve and then Adam to eat of the fruit, and then they realize that they're naked and they run away. And this is one of the most important verses in the whole of the Torah. Vayikra Adonai Elohim El Hadam Vayomer Lo Ayeka. And Lord God spoke to Adam and said to him, "Where are you?" And this is where he says, "Well, I'm naked." And God says, "Well, who told you you were naked? You ate of the fruit, didn't you?" He said, "Well, yeah." So this is the beginning of the fall of man, this most primordial, important event. All these verses, God being really angry with him and telling him and Eve how much they're going to suffer by not being in the oneness of the garden and just going through life, what we call life. The difficulty of childbearing, the difficulty of earning bread, a living, of eating. And then the other verse I wanted to show in this first section, then we're going to start to move faster. This is the fourth column. And at the end of all this section, it says, Vayas Adonai Elohim le'adam u'le'ishto ketonet or. So God made for Adam and for his wife, he made them garments of skin, or, because they realized they were naked. So the Midrash says that here, if you look at the word for or, it's with an ayin, and the word for light in Hebrew is also or, but with an aleph. So the Midrash says that Adam and Eve exchanged garments of light for garments of skin. And that's they exchange oneness for individuality, separateness. And then the whole of life, the whole of the Torah after this is really about them trying to regain those garments of light. That's what it's all about. What happened when they ate that fruit one column ago? They suddenly now were able to, they ate from the tree of fruit of knowledge of good and evil. They now had to make the choice of how they're going to live. In every moment, either follow the good inclination or the bad inclination. And that's the story from now on. So we're going to go fast. It's the story of the first murder where Cain murders his brother Abel, and he says, Hashomer, Achi Anochi, am I my brother's keeper? And God says, yes. So here we continue all the story of the downfall of man. They're coming down from the garden, We're moving ahead to stories of Noah. This is when they leave the ark. We're moving forward with the stories of Noah. And finally, the story of Noah is the story of the fall of man, of the Hamas, of the violence that reigned in the world, where their bad inclination was taking over. There was very little goodness in the world. And here we have, on the 12th column, the beginning of the story of when human beings begin to find redemption, with the story of one man, Vayomer Adonai El Avram, Lech lecha me'artzecha, go from your land, from the land of your birth, from your father's house to the land that I will show you, and you will be, and I will make you for a great nation, and I will bless you. And so that is the story of the beginning of the changing of everything. Abraham, just one person can make a difference to overturn all that darkness, all of that difficulty. And so here we have about 10 columns, all the story of Abraham and of his unfolding spiritual journey, of everything that he goes through, the test, arguing with God. This is going to go a little bit forward, where he becomes Avraham instead of Abraham. This is the story of the circumcision of Yishmael, his son. This is where he's hearing about the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. This is one of the great moments in the Torah when Abraham argues with God and says, wait, well, and God says he was going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so he says, well, what if there's a tzaddik, right? What if there's a righteous person with the evil person? What if there are 50 righteous people inside of those cities? Really? Are you going to do that, God? Are you the God of justice? Are you going to do that? That can't be you. You're not going to destroy those cities, are you, God? And God says, well, if there are 50, okay, I won't do it. And then they start to bargain. Abraham is very good at that. So we continue with the stories of Abraham, his unfolding journey, the 10 tests he goes through. This is the story. And God tested, Nasa means tested Abraham. And this is tells him to take his only son, Isaac, and to offer him up as a sacrifice. This is at Yechidcha. We read this during the high holidays just a few weeks ago. So here we have that whole story of going up the harrowing tale. In the end, he does not sacrifice Isaac. We're going to move forward. The stories of Abraham, the stories of Isaac. Isaac follows in the ways of his father. And finally, we have the story here, the great story of when Jacob and Esau are about to steal the blessing. When Jacob is about to steal the blessing from Esau. This is the beginning of it. When Yitzchak was old, when his eyes stopped from seeing. So he couldn't see anymore, but we always have these different interpretations in the Torah. One interpretation is Isaac could not see with his physical eyes, but he could see with his spiritual eyes. And in the end, he made the right choice. He picked Esau to have the blessing because Esau was more worthy. But this is that whole story of Esau and stealing that blessing. This is Jacob running away after Esau tries to kill him, and he has the dream of the ladder. These are the stories when he's in Laban and gets fooled, because he gets fooled, right? What comes around goes around. And this is a story of when he's finally heading back towards his home, and he knows that his brother Esau is going to come his way. And what does he do? He tries to send things towards his brother, send him gifts, so his brother is not angry when he hears he's coming his way with 400 men. At the end of that story, Jacob wrestles with an angel and he becomes Israel. So this story is, there we go. So after he wrestles with an angel, and he says here, Vayomer lo Yaakov, Yomar Lo Yaakov Yamel Od Shmecha Ki Im Yisrael. Now you'll be called Israel. So I want to show you all something. There's a lot of interesting things in the Torah, and here's one of them. If you can see this, this is Vayishakehu. This is when finally Jacob meets Esau again, and Esau comes, and instead of killing him, he comes and he kisses him. But if you see, there are dots on top of that word. This is the word for kissing him. So the Midrash says, why are there dots in front of this word for kissing him? That's because he wasn't really kissing Jacob. He was like a vampire making holes in his neck. That's what the Midrash says about it. Midrash is more cynical about transformation in Torah. So we move forward. These are the stories of Jacob, stories of Joseph. We're going to go forward really quickly through all of this. The stories of Joseph and of the Ketonet Pasim, of his multicolored coat. And finally, we come to the very end of the book of Genesis, and these are the blessings that Jacob gives to his 12 sons who become the 12 tribes. You see how it's written a little bit differently? In every Torah, they're written a little bit differently. And really, what is Judaism about? It's about passing on tradition and blessing to the next generation. And that's what it's all about. And finally, they head down into Egypt, and this will be the beginning of the next book, the book of Shmot. So, what are we left with? We're left with an existential question. Where are you? Who are you? Person of goodness or person of not goodness? Which way will you follow? And each one of them lives out that path within our family life. So we're going to have our second video now. This is a video aptly called Ayeka. Where are you? And it's a video that's this is the first song that started out this whole spiritual tradition of modern Israeli music.
לפעמים אין לי כוח בעולם חיים אנא מפניך אסתתר מה איתך מה יצטרך ומרחום אליך דרך הגלות כאן יהודים שלחו תעשה עליו תלו בעצות ביום שמחפשם כתודה השמחה נסתלקה ממני וגם אתה קולות מהעבר לא חשים לי לצד אבל אני מוסיף בחושך לחתור ושואל מבקש בסופו של יום נפלת אל החור שולי רן, אחד מהאחים.
So a little bit of context on that song. That song was from the actor who plays in Ushpizin. I don't know how many of you have seen that movie. Shuli Rand, who began as a non-religious actor, but then had this moment of returning to faith. And a lot of his songs, he became a famous rock star, are about struggling with faith. It's not easy, right? So the words we just heard were, master of the world, if we can speak openly, so many times I lack strength, don't know how to just be. Where can I hide? What can I say? I grope in the darkness looking for my way. So he really expressed his faith in a really deep, powerful way. So we're going to continue. The book of Exodus, Shmot, right down here. Ve'ele Shmot, so the Ve'ele Shmot B'nai Israel, these are the names of the children of Israel. So Shmot, in English, the word is Exodus. In Hebrew, the name of the book is Shmot, which means names. The names of God are revealed in this book. The names of Pharaoh. Pharaoh is in a duel against God and Moses throughout the book of Exodus. And it's really a book about the revelation of God in the world to take the slaves out of Egypt. So name Shmot, which means names, right? All the books of the Torah, they take their names from one of the first words in the opening sentence. So Ve'ele Shmot, so it's the second word, and that becomes the name of the whole book in Hebrew. Works the same way for the Parsha. Okay, so this is, they go down into Egypt. We know the story from Passover. Vayakom melech hadash al Mitzrayim. And a new king came over Egypt. And we know what happened. He didn't like the Jews so much. But he's the first one who said, Hine am b'nei Israel. These are the children of Israel. It's the first time we have the children of Israel being named as a nation. They're not a group of tribes. They're not a family. They're a nation. So he gets upset and has the ruling against the Jews, turns them into slaves. The story of the midwives, we know this from the Passover Seder. This is all this column. Where we think it's very long, but actually in the Torah, it's very small. It's not very long at all. And finally, we come to the third column, and we're already at the story of Moses, the burning bush. That's how quickly it goes, right? 3 columns, you're already at the burning bush. You don't hear about Moses, what clothes he wore, or what he was like when he grew up. Nothing. It's very quick, chick-chack. But here we have the famous line, Vayomer Moshe Moshe. And God said, Moses, Moses, Vayomer Hineni. And he said, I am here. Vayomer Al Tirkav Halam Sal Na'alecha Me'al Raglecha. Take your shoes, take your sandals from your feet, because this place is holy. The place in which you're standing is holy. And here we have this whole back and forth, the revelation at the burning bush, which is so central to our tradition, to who we are. And Moses arguing and saying, I'm not ready to do this. I don't know how to do this, God. And he asks God, I'm looking for where God reveals him the name, I am that I am, Eheye Asher Eheye. Here we go down. Can't find it. You can't always find it when it's one big block of text. Of course, the Torah came before the invention of punctuation. So if you look at it, it just looks like one big block of text. But between these lines is the whole story of our people. Here it is. Eheye Asher Eheye. He says, what name will you be? And he says, I am that I am. This is it. I am that I am. This is that name that carries so much for us. I am that I am. The middle of this column. And here we have the rest of the conversation. Moses comes back, and if you've seen the movie The Ten Commandments, his hair is all swished back, and now he's a different person. And he tells his father-in-law, hey, I got to go back to Egypt. And his father-in-law just says to him, Lech leshalom. So if you ever see people sign their emails, leshalom, it's from this little place in the Torah. Go for peace. We don't say bishalom. Bishalom is what you say to someone who's passing on. But leshalom is what you say to say in to peace, for peace, go forward. And that's what Moses' father-in-law tells him. So here we go. Moses is in Egypt. He confronts Pharaoh. He speaks to Pharaoh. We have all the plagues here and the story of Pharaoh's heart, which comes up again and again here. He says, and God spoke to Moses, come to Pharaoh and tell him Tell him the God of the Hebrews send my people, shlach et ami v'yavduni, so they can worship me. Send my people, shalach et ami, send my people, v'yavduni, so they can worship me. We have the story of all the plagues. We read this over Torah. We feel like we should be putting down drops of grape juice. Probably not a good idea on our Torah scroll. Here is the story of all the plagues, the last plagues. Stretch out your hand, Nateh yadecha ala shamayim, vayihi choshech, and there will be a darkness ala aretz, on the land of Egypt. The darkness on the land of Egypt. This is where it happens, right? This block of text, but so much is happening here. We go forward, all these different stories. They're coming out of Egypt, finally, in the middle of the night. This day will be for you a remembrance, and it will be a holiday for all time. This is where it says, for all generations. So we go forward. Pesach, this other word, Pesach. The plagues were already just past them. All of that was the plagues. It goes quickly. You miss the plagues. You blink, it's all gone. So here we have the Song of the Sea. This is at the Red Sea while they're crossing. It looks different, right? So this is with the Song of the Sea that they sing as they're crossing in great joy. They're finally free. And it's a poem, so it's written a little bit differently in the Torah as opposed to all the other blocks of text. And that's what it looks like. So we go forward. They're traveling in the desert towards Mount Sinai, and all kinds of things happen. Their waters are bitter. And finally, the mountain here, this is a story of the mountain is shaking. Everything is changing, a moment of transcendence. And God says, Vayomer Adonai Moshe, red hada'am bi'am pen yasehu. Tell the people to go down, lest I destroy them. They're too close to the power of the mountain. So this is the beginning of the Ten Commandments. Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzicha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibed avadim lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim. But this is the first commandment. I am Yod He Vave. I am that I am, your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. And here we go up here, in the rest of the Ten Commandments, and you'll see all these things you're supposed to do or not do. So if you see, that's the word lo. My children know what that word means. It means no. Lo means no. So here you see again, lo, 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 lo. My children know that very well. Do not do this. These are our 10 commandments. So we move forward. More laws after the 10 commandments. We move all the way forward. And here we come to a part of the Torah which Charles, who's with me, knows is probably the hardest part of the Torah to read, which is all the ark, all the tabernacle. And it begins with God saying, Asuli migdash v'shachanti betocham. Make me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among you. They don't know what they're getting themselves into, but this is what the book of Exodus is about. God dwelling. We've seen the end, but this is about God dwelling with the people. So all of this now is all the details, the hooks, the every part of the Aron. It's just very long. All of this, the dolphin skin, everything. We're going forward. All of this still and this incense, the different things are offered. And then we have one story in the middle of all of this, which is the story of Moses when he's up on there and he hears some sound coming down from the bottom. What was that sound? This was the sound of the people asking Aaron to make for them a golden calf. The people saw that Moses was taking a little bit of time to come down the mountain. The Midrash says he was 1 hour late after what he told them, and they freaked out. So they built a golden calf. This is them building the golden calf. Doesn't go very well. God is angry. Moses is angry. Then at the end of that, Moses goes back, and Moses is wondering. I've said this many times. Moses is wondering, what happened to you guys? And God, are you a God? What kind of God are you? So God reveals to him the 13 attributes of compassion, if I can find them. They're somewhere around here. I'm giving Jim a second to rest his arm. He's holding our iPad. But this is when Moses is by himself with God and asking that question. So let's see, where did I put it? Was it? Never mind, we're going to go forward, I think. Or you can never find something right when you're looking for it. Here we go. Found it. V'yavo Adonai apanav v'yikra. Adonai, Adonai, arachum v'chanun. So this is Lord, Lord, gracious and compassionate Lord, slow to anger, Rav Chesed v'emet, and full of justice and truth. This is what we sing. And if you look here, this nun for notzer creates compassion. The letter nun is really large. Why is the letter nun larger than the other letters? It doesn't look that much larger, but it is larger. In every Torah, nobody really knows, but some people say it's because nun is for nachash, which is snake. The God's compassion and our compassion is what undoes the sin of the snake in the Garden of Eden that led to the ayeka, where am I? So we're going forward. These are all details about the tabernacle, all details about the tabernacle. We come to the end of the book of Numbers. The book of Numbers ends with these words, Ve'esh tiye laila, ki anan Adonai al mishkan yomam ve'esh tiye laila bo le'nei kol bnei Yisrael b'chol ma'asehem. And a cloud of God was with them above the tabernacle in the day, and a fire by night before all the children of Israel. And that's the result. When God is with you, then you have protection, you have fire, you are ready to go. So this is the end of the book of Exodus. We're going to have one more song now. And we're going to have a song which, so wait 1 second before loading the third video. So the third video is going to have one of the singers that we heard before, whose name is Yishai Ribo. He's one of the up-and-coming religious singers. And he'll be singing with Omer Adam. And he'll be singing a song that references Miriam, which we just read in the book of Exodus. And it's a song about God coming into your life to helping you. Where do you turn when your heart is broken? You can turn to God. And he's singing with Omer Adam. Omer Adam is like the biggest pop star in Israel at the moment. But he's also a religious Jew. When he was somewhat religious Jew, when he was given the role of representing Israel at Eurovision, he said no because it was on Shabbat. So he's somewhat traditional. So let's play the third song.
יש עצר שנציק לצוק, ואין ציר שיצעק לצוק. רק אני מול ים שלם ולב שבור. ורק אתה יכול להפוך צדדים למחור, לספק את החור, ללמד לאור. ורק אתה מבין לחדש את הלב שלי, משתף אותי את שלי, מלמד את הלב. הלב שלי נקרא לשניים, מה שראית שפחה למים, כמו סופה מן הים עולם, כמו תופעה של מיליון פעם, תופעה בעולם. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדים למחור, לזכך את החור, ללכך מהכל.
The line that they kept singing again is, only you can turn my mourning into dancing, to purify the sand, to soften in all me, and only you know how to approach my heart. You lessen any pain within me, you heal my heart. It's amazing, mainstream artists singing that, it's really. Now we come to the book of Vayikra. Book of Vayikra of Leviticus is all about the sacrifices. If you look here at the very first word, Vayikra, and God, Vayikra el Moshe, and God called to Moses. Look at that aleph. See, it's smaller, right? Smaller than every other letter. Because when God calls, you only hear, when you make yourself, your aleph, your A, small. When you make yourself small and humble, then you hear the voice. If not, you can't hear the voice. And that's the guiding principle for the entire book. The book is all about korbanot, sacrifices. Korban comes from the word karov, which means close. How do we come close to God? By making ourselves small. That's our ego at least small. That's the basis of the commentators on this. So here we have many, many long descriptions of the sacrifices. And you'll notice at the end of a lot of these paragraphs, the repetition. Ishe reach nichoach ladonai. Something, Charles knows those words very well because so much of the Torah readings end. Ishe, here we are. Ishe reach nichoach ladonai. A pleasant odor to God, right? Everything, our worship is about creating a pleasant odor to God. The smell of barbecue back then, and for us now, it's the true, the sincere words in our hearts. That's what creates a sense of connection to God and to each other. So we continue here all these stories of all the instructions of how to bring the different sacrifices in the tabernacle. It goes on a little bit. And we're going to go forward. Let's see how many. So the book of Genesis is the longest book. This book is the shortest book in the Torah. We'll have a video then of this one, and then we'll go to the very end. No longer upside down? Good, okay. So here we still have more instructions. Here we go. So we're going to have the story when Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron, here, Bnei Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, Ish mitach toto v'yitnu b'hen esh v'simu alei kotor v'yikru v'u lifnei Adonai esh zara. And the sons of Aaron brought a strange fire to God, asher lo tziva otam, which he did not command them. And God then brings up a fire, and his sons are taken up and are themselves killed. One of the only narratives in this whole book, one of the most disturbing narratives. And part of it is the book of Leviticus wants you to know the holiness, it's real. It's not an idea, it's not some sense, a poetic sense in the heart. This is a tangible presence in the world. And that's a big part of the ancient view of Judaism. Holiness is something very tangible and real. If you're not prepared, you come too close, you get zapped. And something that through our worship we bring into the world. We bring a tangible presence of God. That's what all of Leviticus is about. It's about all the sacrifices and in our days prayer, what we do to bring that tangible presence into our world. A very intense idea if you think about it. Now we continue, and this is all kinds of different, we have a whole piece which is about the leper of ancient times, the Metzora. What happens if you didn't follow, if you weren't holy, their understanding was get this mysterious skin disease. We're going to continue. And so here we are, Metzora, we're still in the story of the lepers. And soon we're going to come to a part of this whole book which is called the Holiness Code. The Holiness Code you can see here. This is the beginning. You're going to see a lot more lows, a lot more don't do this. But here, this is all the things that you shouldn't do and to have a sense of sexual morality. This is this section here. And this is, holiness isn't just something tangible you bring into the world, but it's also about how you behave. If you don't behave well, right here, all the lows, low, right, low. Don't do all these things. If you do all these things, then you can't bring in holiness. You've got to behave a certain way and have ethics and morality in a certain place, and that's what allows holiness. Eat a certain way. All of this is about permitting holiness to come into the world. So all this section, we're going to move forward. All of this is about becoming holy, living holy, how to treat other people. This is, again and again, it says the word kadosh, holy. Be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. And here we're going to come to, this is, we read this in Torah in the synagogue around this time of year, all the holidays. So we're going to go quickly. We come to the end of the book of Leviticus, this very intense book. And it ends, these are the mitzvot, asher tziva Adonai. These are the commandments that God commanded Moses to the children of Israel, Behar Sinai, on Mount Sinai. You notice here, Julie earlier asked me, how do you know the end of a book? If you go up a little bit, there's no punctuation, but they did understand space. So there's a space between the books of the Torah. So we're now going to play another song. And this video here is one I felt matched the book of Leviticus. And one of the great musical traditions of Israel at the moment is bringing in Eastern music, right? Israel is in the East, it's in the Middle East. So it's bringing in Eastern music, and a lot of Israelis go on what's called a Tiyul Hagadol. Young Israelis go on a backpacking trip after the army. They bring back music from around the world. And this is a really beautiful piece, which is this kind of Eastern music, but it's to the words of Rav Kook, who was the first chief rabbi of Mandate Palestine, and one of the great rabbis of the 20th century, who wrote beautiful mystical poetry and believed in secular, religious alike, fulfilling God's will and the coming together of the establishment of the state. So I'm going to read for you the words here, beautiful words. Son of man, rise up, son of man, rise up, for you have great strength. You have wings of spirit, the wings of great eagles. Don't deny them, lest they deny you. Claim them, son of man, and they shall be immediately found. This is, the band is called Orot, and the son is called Ben Adam, son of man. Rise up. We are back. So for this last bit, we're going to do both books together. The book of Numbers, Bamidbar, and the book of Deuteronomy. And here we begin. The book of Bamidbar, you can see Bamidbar is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words in. V'yidaber Adonai a Moshe Bamidbar. So you can't call the book Vayedaber. That's just too common. You're not going to call it God's name or El or Moshe. So they call it Bamidbar. But it's the fitting name because Midbar means the desert or the wilderness. And this book is all about their travels in the wilderness, right? This is what takes them all the way from Sinai, Bamidbar Sinai, all the way to the Promised Land, all their adventures, everything that happens. The 40 years, right? This is the 40 years. This book is the 40 years in the desert. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak says it's like a parent teaching their child to walk, right? You hold them, you take a few steps, and then you let go. What happens when you let go? Boom, they fall down. So this is a story of this entire book. So here they are. They're in the desert, and this book has a lot of repetition. Here we have all the tribes, repetition, all the tribes telling us about who's in the tribe. It's a census. Before any travels, you got to take a census. And we have just who's there. These are really initial verses. They're preparing to travel through the desert. They know it's going to be a long trek, and this is all preparation for their long trek. So before you begin your trek, you got to do what Jacob did when he blessed his 12 sons. You got to bless each other. That's so important to our tradition. So what is this? This is our most ancient blessing. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasemecha shalom. Right, this is the priestly blessing that we say at the end of our services. You see how it's written differently. This is how God commands Aaron and the priest to bless the people. This will be the blessing that will carry them throughout their travels. And for us, their travels are like our travels throughout the world, throughout our lives. This is the blessing that also, or one of the blessings that carries us through the journeys of life. So here we go on, and there's endless more repetitions. These are all the princes coming to bring donations to the tabernacle. And this is all these different names. What I hear, Shlumiel ben Suri Shaddai, who, when you read a lot of Torah, then you... Favorite of all, exactly. These are all the names of the chieftains of Israel. So here we go on, a lot of repetition. Again, it's very strange. The Torah, one column on Moses where he comes from, but 10 columns on this repetition of the chieftains. It's really hard to understand. Here's something, again, very cool. So you'll recognize here the verses, Vayihi bin so Aaron vayomer Moshe, right? This is when we open the ark. Vayihi bin so Aaron vayomer Moshe kuma Adonai. But this is the way, right, when they would travel with the ark and say scatter enemies. And you'll notice here there's an inverted noon at the beginning, an inverted letter noon, and here to close it. The scholars think, why are there these inverted noons? How strange. They say, well, maybe the scholars say these verses was actually supposed to be somewhere else. And this was, somebody thought there was a problem here. So this is their way of marking it. But then somebody else saw it and thought, oh, this looks nice, I'll copy it. And then it became part of our Torah. One of the traditional answers is that if you bring the Ark of God with you, then you won't, noon is for falling, nafal, you won't fall. If you do this, then you won't be able to fall. That's one of the traditional ways of understanding why there's an inverted letter. And by the way, if this is not in the Torah, then your Torah is not valid. So we continue with all of these stories of traveling through the desert. So many things happen to them. All the troubles, rebelling against Moses again and again, and Korach, who rebels against Moses, and the ground opens up and eats him up. We continue here. There's a story. We're going to come to the stories of Balak and the talking donkey. Here's Balak. This is the king Balak, who hires Bilam, the magician, to curse Israel, and he's not able to. Every time he curses, he says words of blessing. The words are on top of our ark, right? These are the words. He says, Ma tovu alecha. This is a story of the talking donkey and of Bilam. We continue to go forward. And we're going to before we wanted to show y'all a second. Here we go. So this is the story of Pinchas. Pinchas comes, and the Midianites, in one of these many stories, try to seduce all the Israelites, and Pinchas puts a spear through two of the worst offenders, and God rewards them. But what does he reward him with? He rewards him with the covenant of peace. If you look at the word shalom here, there's like a part of the vav that's missing, right? It's broken. The Vav is broken because it's a broken piece. And every Torah in the world, that Vav of Shalom is missing that piece in the middle to tell you that spearing two people does not bring the best kind of peace in the world. And our tradition is not a pacifistic tradition, as I remember one of my beloved teachers in rabbinical school saying, but we believe that taking life, even in self-defense, is only something that we do as a very last resort. So Pinchas's piece is a broken piece. So we move forward. These are all these different stories and the sacrifices that are brought. The end of the book of Numbers, they come to the edges of the promised land. And here we come, you can see the book ends here. And we're coming to the book of Deuteronomy, Ele Hadvarim. In Hebrew, the book is called Devarim, which means words. And these are the words. And Moses, the man who had trouble speaking, speaks a lot of words. You can look to the very end of all of that are all the words of Moses, the man who does not speak, says in one long speech. So this is Moses' last speech. And as any good speech, he begins with a story, recapping all of their travels during the 40 years in the desert. And this is what all of this is. He's recapping all their stories through the desert. And here he's recapping the 10 Commandments, which you can see again, the lo, do not do this, do not do that, don't steal, don't kill. And then we continue on after that. He's still recapping. This is what you went through when you were in the desert. Jews love to tell stories. And here we have the Shema Yisrael. So you'll recognize this paragraph. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And this is the first, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elecha. So if you look here, the Ayin of Shema is bigger than the other letters, the last letter. And the last letter of Echad, the Dalet, is big. So the Ayin and the Dalet together spell out Ed, which means witness. So we are to be witnesses. To be a Jew is to be a witness in history. And every Torah has those two letters of the Shema. But when we say the Shema, we are to be witnesses to God's presence in the world and to our mission in the world. So we continue, book of Deuteronomy, this is still telling the story of everything that happened, a long prelude to the actual part. And God is just reminding them everything that happened. And now here we get to the part, we read this morning in the Torah. Now we get to all the laws. And from now almost to the end is going to be a series of laws. Ki yebecha evyon. When you have a poor person within you, put your hand out to them. And this is so much of what the rest of the book of Deuteronomy is going to be about. Taking care of each other, being there for each other. And that's what all of this is going to be about. Taking care of each other, being there through all of the moments of life. And you can see a lot of lows here too. All these things that you shouldn't do, because a lot of it is behavior. How to live is to control oneself. There's also a lot of be grateful and observe and remember and love and serve. Here we have when you go out to war over your enemies. So we're almost coming to the end here of the whole Torah. These are more laws, a lot of key. When you do this, when you do that, low. Don't do this, don't do that. Low key. When you do this, don't do this. And if a lot of the laws in the Torah are all in this section. Here are the curses, aruch. These are cursed be he who does this, cursed be he who does that. Moses is trying to really instate in them, this is how you should live. You're all standing before us on this day. This is the verses that we read before the holidays, which conclude tonight and tomorrow. You're all standing today before us, the water carrier to the lamp bearer, to the chieftains, to the elders. And here we come to the very end of the Torah. We have he doesn't have any more words left, but he does have a poem. And this is Moses' poem. You see how there are two columns. And we'll come to the very end of the Torah. Okay, this was the end of our tour. And what are the last words of the Torah? Moses was 120. V'lo kam navi od beYisrael. There was no prophet in Israel k'Moshe, asher yadu Adonai panim panim, who knew God face to face. And there was none like Moses. And and who all these things that God did that Moses did before le'enei kol Yisrael, before the eyes of all Israel. So the Torah ends with the word Yisrael, finishes with the letter Lamed, and the Torah begins with the word Bet, Bereshit. Lamed and Bet spells out Lev, heart. So what's the essence of the Torah? It's love, it's heart, it's kindness, it's Ayeka, where are you? And we never get to the promised land, and that's what it means to be a Jew. We don't get to the promised land until we all get to the promised land. And our role in this world is to help every single other person get there with us and to be a force of goodness and of joy and of blessing in the world. And then we believe one day all of us, every person in this world, will be able to get to the promised land. And we will not rest until we are all there together. This is the end of our Torah. That was 250 columns of our Torah. Thank you to everybody for helping doing this. And we're going to conclude with the last video, a video of gratitude, a song by Omer Adam. Omer Adam, we saw earlier, he's the singer who wouldn't play on Eurovision. And this song has subtitles already worked into it. And gratitude is at the core of who we are as a people and what we do. So we're going to play that song, roll up the Torah, and then we'll begin our service. Chag Sameach.
שלא יהיה לי
That was it. Now we tour the Torah. Now we'll begin our Mariv service, a quick Mariv service that will lead us into our Hakafot. We begin on page 39, 39a, the Baruch. Please rise.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMivorach.
Baruch Adonai Vorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMivorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai HaMahariv HaRavim.
Page 40.
Ki hem chayenu v'yorech yameinu v'hem negei yomam v'alayla v'yavatechal tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch ata Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'yavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha yom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Continue silently on page 43a through to page 44.
מלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל וכאנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך האלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך רע ובניך בוקע ים לפני משה Zeli anu ve'amru Adonai imloch leolam va'ed Adonai imloch leolam va'ed Ne'mar kifada Adonai et Yaakov Ugalo mi'ad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom. Uferos aleinu sukat shalom mecha Baruch atah Adonai Apore sukat shalom aleinu V'al kol amo Yisrael V'al Yerushalayim Vaydaber Moshe et moadei Adonai El bnei Israel Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba Ve'alemad divra kirutei V'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon v'yomechon V'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael Bahagala, Bahagala, Uvizman Kariv Imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Le'alam Alal Me'almaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitbar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitalev, V'yitalal, Shemei Dikudisha, Yerichu Leila, Min Kol Birchata, V'shirata, Tush Bechata, V'nechemata, Damiran Be'alma, Imeru, Amen.
Please rise for our silent Amidah for Mariv, which begins on page 306. We continue with the additions for Simchat Torah, Shmini Atzeret, all the way to the end of the Amidah, page 306 through to page 314.
Say shalom, shalom, shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru. Amen. יתקדש ויתקדש מהרבה, ביום דברי קירותי, ומליך מלכותי, בחיי חון ובימי חון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלה וזמן קריב אמרו, אמן. יש מי רבה מברך, ועלה מולל מהלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן ויומיו אמרו, אמן. תתקבל צלותינו ואותינו לכל ישראל, קודם אבון ושמעיה ואמרו, אמן. יש לומר רבה מן שמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו,
We'll now turn to the part of our liturgy that will lead us to dancing, the hakafot. Hakafot means processions or circles. We turn to page 402. Like any Torah service, we have verses before, but since this is the Torah service where we dance with the Torahs, we have extra verses. Unto you it was shown that Adonai is God, there is none else. Page 402.
אתה הורית לדעת, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, אין עוד מלבדו.
ועושה נפלאות גדולות לבדו, כי לעולם חסדו.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך.
יהי כבוד אדוני לעולם, ישמח אדוני במעשיו.
יהי שם אדוני מבורך, מעתה ועד עולם.
יהי אדוני אלוהינו עמנו, כאשר היה עם אבותינו, אל יעזבנו ואל יטשנו.
ואמרו הושיענו אלוהי אישנו, וקבצנו והצילנו מן הגויים, להודות לשם קודשך, להשתבח בהילתך.
אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. ויהי בנשוא אהרון, ויאמר משה, קומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך. קומה אדוני למנוחתך, אתה ואהרון עוזך, כהניך ילבשו צדק, וחסידיך ירננו בעבור דוד עבדך. אל תשב פני משיחך, ואמר ביום ההוא, הנה אלוהינו זה, קיווינו לו ויושיענו. זה אדוני קיווינו לו, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתו. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. אב הרחמים היטיב ורצונך את ציון, תבנה חומות ירושלים, כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך אלרם וניסה אדון עולמים.
we remove all of the Sifrei Torah from our ark. And soon we begin our Hakafot, moment where we dance with the Torahs. There are 7 of them, and they all begin with words of prayer, and then we dance.
Anadonai Hoshiana, Anadonai Hatzlichana, Anadonai Aneinu V'yom Koreinu, Elohei Haruchot Hoshiana, Bochen Livavot Hatzlichana, Goel Chazak Aneinu V'yom Koreinu, Aneinu, Aneinu V'yom Koreinu, Aneinu, Aneinu V'yom Koreinu. Second Hakafot. Dover tzedakot Hoshiana, Hadur bil shvusho hatzlichana, Vatik v'chasid, Aneinu v'yom koreinu, Aneinu, Aneinu v'yom koreinu, Neinu, Aneinu v'yom koreinu. Third Hakafot. זה וישר הושיענה, חומל דלים הצליחנה, טוב ומיטיב עננו ויום קוראנו, עננו ויום קוראנו, עננו ויום קוראנו. Up, go, you guys. We'll give our dancers a moment to catch their breath. What a workout, huh? Fourth, hakafa. Yodea machashavot hoshiana, kabir v'naor hatzlichana, lovesh tzedakot anenu v'yom koreinu, anenu v'yom koreinu, anenu v'yom koreinu. Something different this time. A little surf hava nagila. Dick Dale. The California sound there. That's what the California Jews dance to. Let's move on. Next, fifth hakafa. Melech olamim hoshiana, naor v'adir hatzlichana, somech noflim anenu v'yom koreinu, anenu v'yom koreinu, anenu v'yom koreinu. Something a little easier now. How you doing, everybody out there? You dancing at home? Wow. How are you guys doing here in the sanctuary? Oh, Jerry loves it. Jerry, take a bow. Okay, catch your breath. I know that I'm catching mine. We have now the 7th Aliyah Hakafa, and we're combining 2 stanzas, and it's the final one. That's true. That's how it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Kadosh v'nora Hosheana, Rachum v'chanun hatzlichana, So shomer habrit anenu v'yom koreinu, Tomech temimim Hosheana, Takif la'ad hatzlichana, Tamim b'ma'asav anenu v'yom koreinu, Anenu v'yom koreinu, Anenu v'yom koreinu. How about a Lubavitcher dance? Hup, hup, hey. Bashana Haba. We're going to finish with next year. We did it.
You just played the music. We danced.
Well, it still was out of breath.
All right, so we're going to return all the Torah scrolls. Actually, while we return them, we have one more video we can quickly show you. This is the last song we played was a wedding song. And this is a young Israeli artist, Yuval Dayan, who went around Israel crashing weddings during the COVID pandemic to give them a little bit of uplift. Isaac, can you play the next one? We'll bring the Torahs back.
אני יודעת שיש מלאכים בעולם מחכים לי בדרך. לא צריך למלא, הכל יסתדר, זה יבוא עם הזמן. יש דברים חשובים באמת, זה בסוף בפרטים הקטנים. לפעמים לא צריך לדבר, גם בשקט שמנו מילים, שרק תחייך כל החיים. זה כל מה שאני מבקשת, בית קטן, כיתה לילדים. תמיד אני מאושרת, תדע שאני לתמיד עלינו שומרת. ואתה לא תראה, הדברים בעצמם יתחברו עם הדרך. הפחדים יפחדו, שלא תיפתחו, זה יבוא עם הזמן. יש דברים חשובים באמת, זה בסוף בפרטים הקטנים. לפעמים לא צריך לדבר, גם בשקט שמנו מילים, שרק תחייך כל החיים. זה כל מה שאני מבקשת, בית קטן, גינה לילדים. תמיד אני מאושרת, תדע שאני לתמיד עלינו שומרת.
You can close it actually.
שרק תחייך כל החיים, זה כל מה שאני מבקשת, בית קטן, גינה לילדים. תמיד אני מאושרת, שרק תחייך כל החיים. זה כל מה שאני מבקשת, בית קטן, גינה לילדים. תמיד אני מאושרת, תדע שאני לתמיד עלינו שומרת.
Our Torahs are back. We're ready to read the very last few verses of the book of Deuteronomy. We conclude one book, and what happens when we conclude one book? We conclude the end of the Torah. We begin from the very beginning. We're chapter 34 of Deuteronomy, page 1210. We'll have several aliyot. One of them will be for the millionaires. But I thought the first aliyah will be for anyone who baked sourdough this year. I'm serious. That would be way too quick. Anyone who, or their spouses, anybody or their spouse who baked sourdough this last 6 months, that would maybe me.
Okay.
Viazor?
I bake sourdough.
Oh, good. We have somebody else. Great.
Of course.
Charles, you want to do Viazor, Vialed? So we're in the Chumash, we're in the Etz Chaim, we're on page 1210, chapter 34 of Deuteronomy.
All right, I'm gonna look. I want a copy here. Because even though it's on Safari, you can open it and read it and see the commentary like I do for Pesach.
Please call us up a time. Around 1:45. Anyone or their spouse who's baked sourdough this year?
Moshe Ben Yaakov.
Moshe Ben Yaakov.
Rachel Glick.
Baruch Natan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato ve'atem v'vikim Adonai Elohechem chayim kochem hayom.
1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu
Es Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach L'olam Va'ed. Baruch
Adonai Hamborach L'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Ata Adonai
Eloheinu
melech haolam
asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim
natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata
Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayal Moshe me'arvot Moav har nevo rosh hapisaga asher al pnei Yerecho ve'yarechu Adonai et kol haaretz et Gilad ad Dan ve'et kol Naftali et eretz Ephraim u'Menashe ve'et kol eretz Yehuda ad hayam ha'acharon ve'et haNegev ותכיכר בקעת יריחו עיר התמרים עד צוהר ויאמר אדוני אליו זאת הארץ אשר נשבעתי לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב לאמור לזרעך אתננה הראיתיך בעיניך ושמה לא תעבור.
1, 2, 3. Baruch Ata Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam notah b'sachenu Baruch Ata Adonai nosen haTorah.
For our second Aliyah, anybody who wants to revisit 5,780? Just kidding. Anyone who has had Zoom calls with relatives or friends they usually do not speak to.
Usually don't speak to?
Yeah.
Or even if you speak to them, you spoke to them more often than you usually did in the last year.
I got it.
All right.
Leah about Abraham and Sarah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayamot sham Moshe eved Adonai be'eretz Moav al pi Adonai vayikbor oto v'gai be'eretz Moav mud beit Peor v'lo yada ish et kevurato ad hayom hazeh ומשה בן 120 שנה במותו לא חטאינו ולא נסלחו ויבכו בני ישראל את משה בערבות מואב 30 יום ויתמו ימי וכי אבל משה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natav v'tachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yamdu shlishi.
All of our millionaires for our third Aliyah.
Looks like it's like Tuesday, Wednesday morning.
I think we're all here.
Yeah.
Good.
Some of us are here.
Some of us are here. Yeah.
Good to hear your voices. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach L'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach L'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher Bacharbanu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torah Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yehoshua ben Nun, Male Ruach Chachma, Ki Samach Moshe, Et Yadav Alav, Vayishmeu Elav, Bnei Israel, Ve'asu Kasher Tziva Adonai, Et Moshe, Ve'lo kam Navi od, V'Yisrael K'Moshe, Asher Yida'o Adonai, Panim El Panim, L'cha ha'otot ha'moftim, Asher Shlacho Adonai La'asot Be'eretz Mitzrayim, L'Faro, U'l'chol Avadav, U'l'chol Artzo, U'l'chol Hayad HaChazakah, U'l'chol HaMorah HaGadol, Asher Asa Moshe L'nei O Yisrael. Chazak,
Chazak,
Together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Let's go right on.
Yamod Revi'i.
We begin the book of Bereshit, of Genesis, the beginning of the Torah, from one end to the other. And for this aliyah, I'd like to invite anyone who has thought oy vezmir in the past few months, but who is nonetheless hopeful that the year to come will be better than we imagine. All right.
I think that's all of us.
I think that's all of us.
I'll jump in, yeah.
All right, together.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah.
Page 3 in our Chumashim.
Amen. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz hayta tohu vavohu v'choshech al pnei techom v'ruach Elohim rachefet al pnei hamayim vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or vayar Elohim et haor ki tov vayavdel Elohim ben haor uven hachoshech vayikra Elohim el haor yom ולחושך קרא לילה, ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר, יום אחד. ברוך
אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נתת בתוכנו. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen.
We'll be raising our Torahs. Please rise. Thank you to Charles and Julie, who've been raising and dressing the Torahs for the last 3.5 weeks.
Al pi Adonai bi'ad Moshe. sing our song. Yisrael v'oraita v'kudesha b'richu chadu. Yisrael v'oraita v'kudesha b'richu chadu. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah. 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 We leave you with a little more music.
Have a Chetzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבו, ועלמה דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, מחייכון ויומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בהגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו, אמן. ישמי רבה מברך, לעולם עולם מהלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה, מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, נמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן.
So we'll turn to the special Kiddush, including Havdalah, but without a flame, which takes us from Kodesh to Kodesh, from holiness to holiness, from one holy day to the next holy day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol am ve'umanu mikol hashon v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav. Atitin l'Adonai Eloheinu be'ava moedim l'simcha chagigim uzmanim l'sason et yom השמיני חג עצרת הזה, זמן שמחתנו, מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, קיוונו בחרת, אותנו קידשת מכל עמים, מועדי קודשך, בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש ישראל והזמנים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, המבדיל בין קודש לקודש, בין אור לחושך, בין ישראל עמים, בין יום השביעי לששת ימעשה, בין קדושת שבת לקדושת יום טוב, הבדלת, את יום השביעי מששת ימי המעשה, קידשת, הבדלת וקידשת את עמך ישראל בקדושתך. ברוך אתה אדוני, המבדיל בין קודש לקודש. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Please remain standing. Aleinu, page 56.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נותן שמיים. ואינו דרכי נקבל לך אלוהינו. שון, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Mourner's Kaddish, page 58. Please remain standing if you are mourning or observing a yahrzeit. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael b'galau v'izman kari v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'amei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei de Kudesha, Berichu, Le'ela, Minkol, Berchata, Veshirata, Tush Bechata, Venechemata, Damiran, Be'alma, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'chaim, Aleinu, V'akol, Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom b'mumav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'akol, Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. As a final, we can do Yigdal. Do you want to do Yigdal or Adon Olam? Or we can just stop here and have one more video I'd like to play. Would you like to do a last prayer or? Would you like to do a last one? Up to you. Up to you.
The video?
Adon Olam or Yigdal?
You choose. You're driving the bus.
Okay. We're going to do a Adon Olam.
Okay, good.
Followed by a last video, which will play right. Our last video will play right afterwards, and in the spirit of the Hakafot of our dancing tonight. The video will be of Kululam. Kululam is an organization in Israel that's been bringing together thousands of Israelis where they learn the song and then they sing it together. And this one is very much in the spirit of tonight. And we'll play that after Adon Olam. So first Adon Olam. Do you have the page number, Cantor?
211, page 211. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzil Nivra, Le'et Nasa, V'chevtzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora, V'hu Haya, V'hu Ove, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, לים שלו ליכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי ביצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, בידו אפקיד רוחי, והייתי שם ויעירה, ועם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא.
Chag Sameach, everyone. Thank you for joining us in our last video. Thank you, Isaac Schiff-Lewin, for his wonderful work and helping, and Jim Shirley helping us to make all the technical aspect happen tonight. All right.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Yasher Koach.
Yasher Koach, everyone.
And Israel, going to Hawaii.
Stuff and then read this later stuff again. Okay, I'm just-
You're getting to another mile of road.
Okay, and so if I could see, I could check the date. And I think because I understood that whether it was a I think I'm going to invite Christian also. Everything. So I can get together. I'm not going to say anything till we actually.